Hello, Columbine. It's Kristen Doust again, and this will be my final master class with you. And so we are going to talk today about some different animals. A lot of these have been going to surgery, and then your activity today is going to be practicing doing surgery. Hopefully that will be pretty fun for you. So without further ado, here are some fun stories about animals and the predicaments they get into. So my first story is about a horse named Sunny. This was a 14-year-old horse. The breed was called a quarter horse, and he was found rolling around and not eating. This in horses can be very serious because when horses get sick, they can't vomit, so they can't get rid of any toxins that they have. And so when a horse has tummy pain, it's called colic, and it is considered an emergency if that happens. And Sunny's emergency went really bad, and he ended up having to go to surgery. It's pretty difficult to take a horse to surgery. So you can see here they've got the horse lying on the surgery table, and it's very difficult for an animal that big to be able to get maneuvered around. You can see how many people it takes to roll that surgery table around to get him into surgery. And so what they found in him is this giant rock in his intestine. This is what's called an enterolith, which is a big, huge stone or rock that the body makes in their intestines. And they get these sometimes by swallowing little tiny rocks, and then their body doesn't know what to do with it. And so it lays down more and more mineral on it, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what happened to Sunny. But he did fine after surgery. So this is what a horse looks like recovering from surgery, from colic surgery. They have this big bandage on their belly, and this horse is on fluids to help keep him hydrated. These go into a vein in his neck. Okay, our next story is about a 5-year-old bulldog named Snuffles. And this is a picture of Snuffles after the fact. This is what Snuffles got into. Most of you probably know what kind of animal this is. This is something we have in Colorado, and I saw a lot of dogs chase these in Colorado. And this is what Snuffles looked like after he had his run-in with the porcupine. And you can see Snuffles was pretty persistent about getting into that porcupine. He didn't give up when he got 1 or 2 quills in him. He kept at it. And so we have to take these porcupine quills out of the dog. Usually what we'll do is sedate them so they can't feel it because it hurts a bit. And we have to pluck all these quills out. And porcupines can't throw their quills, so the dog actually has to bite the porcupine to get the quills. Touch the porcupine. And here you can see what it looks like as we take out all those porcupine quills. That's just a close-up so you can see what the quill looks like. Okay, so this next case is a dog named Bridget. And Bridget got out of her yard and she got hit by a car, which happens unfortunately very frequently with both dogs and cats. And she couldn't use her front legs, and so we took x-rays of her front legs, and you can see she's got a fracture here and here. So both of her front legs got broken. So she had to go to surgery And this is what she looked like after surgery, trying to fix both of those front legs. And she did fine. Okay, this next is the story of Bucky, a 2-year-old pit bull. And young dogs a lot of times will do funny things. They eat things that they shouldn't. It's kind of like if you have a toddler at home, if any of you have a younger brother or sister, and they put everything in their mouth, even if they're not supposed to. And that's what young dogs can be like. And this is what Bucky did. I think most of you can tell from this x-ray that Bucky ate a spoon. Probably had something pretty tasty on it, and he decided to swallow it rather than just lick it. This next dog is a 1-year-old dog named Sable. And Sable's owner found her with her cell phone and couldn't get it from her. And Sable ran outside. And when the owner found Sable, she couldn't find her phone anymore. He ended up deciding that Sable had eaten it. So here's a picture of Sable's x-ray, and you can see very clearly, this is a few years ago, so this wasn't quite such a smartphone. You can see very clearly what that phone looked like. This is back when I worked at the emergency clinic in Colorado Springs, and this is a great horned owl that I got to see coming in. I was a bit younger then. And this great horned owl was found by the Division of Wildlife near a pond, and he had a bunch of fishing line wrapped around his talons, which are his feet, and his wing. And he was still quite alert. He didn't act sick yet. Luckily, someone found him. And here's a picture of what he looked like. And I handle him using these gloves because their talons can grasp things so hard. It's safety for me, for my hands, to handle a big owl with gloves. Owls, hawks, and eagles should all get handled with those big gloves. And so here we are trying to unwrap the fishing line from around his wings and his talons. And we were able to get it all off, and he was able to be released. And next we have a story about a duck. We called him Ducky Doo, and he was found acting sick. He was a wild duck. And we took an x-ray of him, and you can see he swallowed a fish hook, probably smelled like fish, or maybe even had a fish on it. And you can see the fishing line comes all the way up, and there's the fishing lure there. So he had to go to surgery to take that fishing line out. So both of those cases, the great horned owl as well as Ducky Doo, these are reasons that people have to be careful about leaving litter out in the wild, because animals come along and they eat it, or they get entangled, like the great horned owl got all entangled with it. This next one is the story of a dog named Lobo. Lobo was a 4-year-old mixed breed dog, and he was riding in the back of the truck without being in a kennel, so he was just loose in the back of the truck. And unfortunately, working at the emergency clinic, we would see dogs all the time that would fall out of the truck. So it's a very dangerous situation to have a dog loose in the back of the truck. And if they're in a dog kennel, that kennel needs to be tied down. If they're in a crate, that needs to be tied down. And even if the dog is tied up in the back of the truck, that can be dangerous, because sometimes they'll fall out if the truck makes too fast of a turn, and they can actually choke themselves. So you have to be careful with dogs in the back of a truck. The only way they should be in the back of a truck is if they're inside a crate or a kennel that's tied properly. So Lobo was loose in the back of his truck, and he fell out, and this is his back leg. And this big bone, this is the femur, your thigh bone. and that's a very, very difficult bone to repair. It's also a very important bone, and it's also a very painful bone to break. So poor Lobo had to go to surgery to get that fixed. And here, this is another case from the emergency clinic. This is a baby squirrel whose mom died. And so we found a carer who was willing to take on this little squirrel. And he needed feeding every 2 hours, and he needed round-the-clock care. So the vet nurse who took him on actually just carried him around in a little satchel, kind of like you would a baby, so that she had him at all times so she could take care of him. And this next story is Zach. Zach is a chocolate lab, and Labradors love to put things in their mouth. And Zach had 2 days where he wouldn't eat anything, which is very unusual for labs because they tend to love their food. And on the day he started vomiting, we took some x-rays and found that Zach has eaten, this is a picture of his stomach, and all of these white things inside there are rocks. So Zach has eaten a whole bunch of rocks, and he had to go to surgery to get those taken out. So now I've just got a few funny things that dogs have eaten here. These are the kinds of things Zach would love to eat. This one, I think you can tell, is a little toy race car. This is a plastic rubber duck that this dog ate. And this dog, I can't even imagine swallowing this, but this dog swallowed a knife that was used to slice some steak. Why in the world would you do that? And next we have the case of Princess. Princess is a little Chihuahua, 6 years old, and she's expecting puppies. And so she went into labor the previous night. Labor just means it's time for her to have her puppies yet. But this was her first litter, and so it was taking a long time. So we took some x-rays of her. And so here's Princess. You guys have seen a lot of x-rays of dogs now. So you can tell that the inside of her, these little skeletons, these are all her little puppies. And it looks like she has 3 puppies inside. And this is what the puppies looked like when they were born. So that's a brand new baby Chihuahua puppy. And that's it for some fun surgery cases for you today. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoyed learning about the Australian animals that we did as well. And I hope you enjoy the surgery project that Mrs. Davidson has for you. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.